Serena would win a U.S. Open just a few years later. Nicklaus was in that era. Gary Player, Billy Casper. Into the 70s, along comes Johnny Miller and Tom Watson, and later Greg Norman. How would you compare Nicklaus's rivals, you were right there, with Tiger's rivals of today?
Well, I started the year after Jack. You were always playing top competition. I think there were guys that elevated their game more back then. I think the term superstar,
Raymond Floyd has finally named his 5 favorite players of all time, and the list is not what you expect from a man who spent 60 years trying to destroy everyone he played against. Think about who Raymond Floyd is for a second. This is not a man who hands out compliments. This is not a man who smiles at you on the first tee and tells you to have a great round. This is the Iceman, a man who walked onto golf courses the way a predator walks into a room, silent, locked in, cold. His eyes did not wander. They did not blink. They just fixed on the target and stayed there. People who played against him described it as one of the most uncomfortable feelings in professional golf. Not because Floyd said anything, not because he made a sound, but because those eyes told you something that no one wants to hear on the back nine of a major championship. They told you that you were already beaten, that the match was over before it started, that the only way Floyd was going to lose was if he decided to let you win, and he was never going to decide that. He won 22 times on the PGA Tour. He won 4 major championships. He won 14 more times on the Champions Tour. He played on 7 Ryder Cup teams. He competed across 4 different decades and kept winning. At 83 years old, after a lifetime of cold stares and colder competition, Floyd sat down and named the 5 players he truly admired. If you enjoy this kind of old-school golf truth, tap the hype feature and give this video some hype right now. It really helps the channel grow. So who do you respect when you are Raymond Floyd? Who do you look at across 60 years of golf history and say, yes, that one was different, that one had what it takes? The answer is not the 5 friendliest names you could pick. It is not a list of the most popular players. It is a diagnostic. A cold, precise, unsentimental verdict on who could actually survive the kind of pressure that breaks most people before they ever get the chance to find out how good they really are. 5 players, 5 reasons. And they start where the modern game lives. Number 1, Tiger Woods. It is rare, it is almost unheard of, actually, for a man like Raymond Floyd, a man who grew up in the era of persimmon woods and money matches on dusty Texas ranges, to reach across the decades and point at a modern player and say, that one gets it. That one is like me. But Floyd does exactly that with Tiger Woods. And he means every word. Floyd says Tiger is the only player of the modern era who has the same intensity of the eyes that Floyd used to take apart the field for 4 decades. Not the most wins, not the best swing, the eyes. That tells you everything about what Floyd values. He watched the tour become friendlier. He watched players become ambassadors and media personalities and brand ambassadors. He watched golf become a television event where everyone shook hands and smiled and said the right things. And it bothered him, because golf, at its core, was never supposed to be friendly. It was supposed to be a war. Tiger understood that. Tiger did not go out there to play golf. He went out there to break people. He wanted to leave opponents in a state where they went home and questioned everything they believed about their own game. Floyd saw that. He recognized it the same way an old soldier recognizes something in a young one's eyes. He called it tribal, a recognition that crossed the decades. Floyd watched Tiger win the 2000 United States Open by 12 shots. 12, in a major championship, against the best players on the planet. And he did not just win it, he dismantled it. He shattered the scoring record. He made the entire field look ordinary. That kind of performance is not about talent alone. Talent can win tournaments. But going somewhere mentally that other people refuse to go is what separates the great from the greatest. Floyd respects that more than most things. The willingness to be that alone in your own focus. To care that little about being liked. To prioritize the destruction of your opponent's spirit over every other concern on the golf course, that is what Tiger had. That is why Floyd, a man who respects almost no one from the modern era, made an emphatic exception. Tiger Woods is number 1 on this list because he is the only player who made the modern game feel like the old game. Cold, brutal, Real. Number 2. Sam Snead. There is a bond between Raymond Floyd and Sam Snead that most people in golf do not fully understand. It is not just admiration, it is recognition. Floyd looked at Snead and saw something of himself, something that only 2 men in the entire history of the PGA Tour have ever achieved. They are the only 2 players who won official PGA Tour events in 4 different decades. That is it, just the 2 of them. Every other player who ever played the game professionally, every legend, every icon, every champion, won in 3 decades at most. Snead and Floyd did it in 4. That is not a coincidence. That is a philosophy made real, a belief that the game is not something you age out of if you treat it right, if you maintain your body, if you protect your swing, if you keep the mind sharp and the will sharp and the competitive edge from going dull. Floyd looked at Slammin' Sammy and saw the proof, because Snead had this swing that people talk about to this day as one of the most beautiful ever built. Smooth, almost slow, like honey coming off a spoon. A tempo that looked effortless but produced results that were anything but. And Snead kept that swing working well into his 60s and 70s. He finished 3rd in the PGA Championship in 1974. He was 62 years old, 3rd place in a major. That is what Floyd loved, not the trophies, though Snead had plenty of them. He won 82 official PGA Tour events. 82. The record stood as the all-time benchmark for longevity and productivity well into the modern era. Floyd viewed that number the way one traveler on a long road views another who has covered the same ground, with a deep, quiet respect that only comes from knowing how hard the journey actually is. Floyd himself became the first player to win on both the PGA Tour and the Champions Tour in the same calendar year, in 1992. His respect for Snead was personal, one craftsman recognizing another, one athlete who refused to quit, looking at an older one who proved that refusing to quit was the whole point. Discipline outlasts power. A repeatable swing outlasts raw distance. The mind that keeps competing outlasts the young one that burns out chasing the wrong things. Snead proved it first, Floyd lived it second, and that shared membership in the 4-decade club is a bond that no amount of trophies or majors or rankings can replicate. Number 3. Arnold Palmer. The world saw Arnold Palmer one way, the crowd favorite, the king, Arnie's army. The man who hit the ball with that big, slashing swing and then grinned at the gallery like he was having the time of his life. The man who built golf's television audience almost by himself. The man who made the sport feel accessible and exciting to people who had never picked up a club. Raymond Floyd saw someone else entirely. Floyd and Palmer came up together in the 1960s. They partied together. They played practice rounds together. They were part of the same world, a world that most people in modern professional golf do not fully understand because it no longer exists. It was a world of money matches, of wealthy oil men and cotton farmers who wanted to watch their cash hold up against a professional on a Saturday afternoon, of private wagers and side bets and the kind of pressure that does not come with a trophy. It comes with food on the table or it does not come at all. Palmer grew up in that world. He understood it, and that is what Floyd respected, because underneath the grin and the gallery charge and the slashing finish, Palmer was a predator. He would beat you so cleanly that you walked off the 18th green thanking him for the privilege. Floyd knew that feeling. He respected it the way one competitor respects another who operates on the same frequency. Palmer brought a blue-collar hustle to the world stage. He proved that the grit of the gambling circuit could translate to international dominance. He was not just playing for trophies. He was playing for the same reason every real competitor plays. Because winning is the only thing that feels right. Because losing physically hurts. Because there is no version of the game where second place is acceptable. Floyd called him a hustler with a conscience. A man who understood the dark necessity of winning while still maintaining the image the game needed to grow. That balance is harder than it looks. Most people can do one or the other. Palmer did both, and that is why he sits at number 3 on the most demanding list in the history of golf. Number 4. Jack Nicklaus. If you want to understand what Raymond Floyd means by mental cruelty, you have to understand Jack Nicklaus. Not the 18 major championships, though those matter. Not the 19 runner-up finishes in majors. Not the 56 top 5 finishes in major championships across a career that stretched decades. Those numbers are staggering, but they are not the point. What it felt like to play against him on a Sunday afternoon when the tournament was close is the point. Floyd chased Nicklaus for years. He beat him occasionally. He emerged from Nicklaus's shadow in the 1969 PGA Championship and again in a playoff at Doral in 1980. But he never stopped respecting the psychological weight Nicklaus carried every week he showed up. Playing against Nicklaus was like playing against something that was not quite human in its emotional responses. Most players feel pressure. It changes their breathing. It tightens their muscles. It makes the putter feel heavier and the fairways feel narrower. Nicklaus seemed not to experience any of that. He was immune, and that immunity was the most devastating weapon in the game. Because here is what Floyd understood. You can prepare for a player who gets nervous. You can watch for the tells. You can stay patient and wait for the moment when the pressure finally cracks them open. But you cannot wait for Nicklaus to crack. He is not going to crack. He is going to make the putt. And when he makes it, he is going to look at the scoreboard and calculate exactly what needs to happen next, and then he is going to go do that. Every time, like a machine. Floyd admired Nicklaus for what he called the ability to constrict the life out of an opponent. Not dramatically, not loudly, quietly, methodically. By simply being there on the leaderboard late on Sunday when every other competitor needed him to make a mistake. He did not make mistakes. Not when it mattered, and that relentless consistency was, in Floyd's view, a form of inevitable dominance that no other player in the history of the game has fully replicated. Even when Nicklaus did not have his best ball striking, he found a way to win. Course management, clutch putting, sheer force of mental will. The man could score his best when he was not playing his best, and to Floyd, that is the single highest marker of greatness in the sport. Number 5. Ben Hogan. Everything ends here. Every conversation Raymond Floyd has ever had about the greatest players in the history of golf ends up in the same place. It ends with a man named Ben Hogan standing on a driving range with his hands raw and bleeding, hitting golf balls until the answers revealed themselves from the dirt beneath his feet. Floyd calls Hogan the blueprint. Not a blueprint, the one that everything else is measured against. Hogan was known as the Hawk for a reason. His eyes on the golf course carried the same cold, hunting focus that Floyd would later make famous with his stare. Two Icemen separated by a generation but operating from the same psychological code. There is a story Floyd tells that reveals everything. As a young professional, Floyd approached Hogan seeking some kind of validation, some acknowledgement that he was on the right path, that he had the goods to make it at the highest level, and Hogan looked at him and said, "I did not think you could play." Most people would have been crushed by that. Most people would have walked away questioning everything. Floyd did not. Floyd recognized it for what it was. A test. Hogan was not being cruel for the sake of it. He was finding out if the young Floyd had the mental toughness to survive the blunt, brutal reality of what professional golf actually demands. And the way Floyd received those words, not with hurt, not with anger, but with a quiet recognition that this was how the best operate, told Hogan everything he needed to know. Floyd believed that Hogan was the only player in the history of the game who truly owned every shot he hit. Not controlled it, not managed it, owned it. There is a difference. Control implies that luck still plays a role, that the ball might sometimes do something you did not intend. Ownership means you have solved the problem so completely that luck becomes irrelevant. Hogan got the ball on a string and kept it there. He controlled it like it was attached to him. He manufactured a swing so precise and so repeatable that accuracy was not a goal. It was simply the expected outcome. That came from work that most people are not willing to do. Hogan believed that the answers were in the dirt. That if you hit enough golf balls and paid enough attention to what each one told you, the swing would eventually reveal itself as something close to perfect. Floyd admired that philosophy because it matched his own belief about the game. That talent is a starting point, not a destination. That the players who truly make it are the ones willing to go deeper than talent takes them. Hogan's 1953 season stands for Floyd as the single greatest performance in the history of professional golf. He won the Masters, he won the United States Open, he won the Open Championship. 3 of the 4 majors in one calendar year, with the only absence being the PGA Championship due to a scheduling conflict. To Floyd, that season represents the game played as close to its own ideal as any human being has ever managed. That is why Hogan sits at the very top, because for Floyd, respect begins with the work. It begins with the willingness to dig it out of the dirt, day after day, year after year, until the ball goes where you tell it to go and nowhere else. And nobody in the history of the game has ever done that more completely than Ben Hogan. 5 players, 5 different versions of the same truth. What Floyd is really saying with this list is something deeper than a ranking. He is saying that golf at its highest level is not a sport, it is a war. A quiet, internal war that plays out over 4 hours on a golf course but really happens behind the eyes, in the place where doubt lives, in the moment before you pull the trigger on a shot that decides everything. The players on this list never lost that war when it counted. They stepped into the fire of a major championship on a Sunday afternoon with everything on the line, and they did not flinch. They did not let the moment grow bigger than they were. And to Raymond Floyd, a man who built a Hall of Fame career on that exact same refusal to blink, that is the only thing that ever truly mattered. This list is not a gift, it is a verdict, and from Raymond Floyd, there is no higher honor than that. If this video gave you the old school golf truth you came here for, leave a comment with your own 5, like the video, and subscribe so you never miss one. We will see you next time.